Right, good day, learners, and once again we are doing a Shakespearean sonnet. This is known as Sonnet 71, also known by the first line of the sonnet, which reads, "No longer mourn for me when I am dead." And I want to just jump into the reading of the sonnet first, but I want you to listen with understanding when I'm reading. So all I want to say at the outset is that the mood is it's very dark, it's very morbid, and so just bear that in mind when you listen. I mean, when we start discussing it, I think it will all just come together. So Shakespeare starts off by saying, well, not Shakespeare, the speaker, "No longer mourn for me when I am dead, then you shall hear the surly, sullen bell give warning to the world that I am fled from this vile world with vilest worms to dwell." Nay, if you read this line, remember not the hand that writ it, for I love you so that I in your sweet thoughts would be forgot, if thinking on me then should make you woe. Oh, if, I say, you look upon this verse when I, perhaps, compounded am with clay, do not so much as my poor name rehearse, but let your love even with my life decay, lest the wise world should look into your moan and mock you with me after I am gone. So straight away you can just hear that there's a lot of talk about death and just a whole lot of negativity going on. So Shakespeare, well, let's just say this, the speaker is speaking to his male friend, probably the Earl of Southampton, and we know that was his sponsor, and we also know that there was quite an age gap, the Earl of Southampton being a much younger man. And if you really love someone and you love them unselfishly, you want them to be happy, not only when you're alive, but even when you are dead. You want their happiness. Their happiness is your priority. So if you really love them, it's almost like you want to set them free. And what the speaker does in this poem, he's basically saying, I know I'm going to die first, implying because I'm much older. And Shakespeare is thinking about his loss. But at the same time, he's also thinking, because I love this young man, I don't want him grieving for me. I don't want him being unhappy when I'm gone. Think about it. When you are married one day, would you like your partner, your spouse, to find love with someone else? If you really love them, then that is probably what you should want for them. Personally, I'd like my photo to be hanging there, a constant reminder. Maybe my love is a bit selfish. I don't want to think of someone else. But Shakespeare says, no longer mourn for me when I am dead. Why shouldn't you mourn? Because mourning is grieving, and grieving is deep. It affects the soul. It affects the mind. It's very difficult to snap out of. And so the poem presents a paradox. And I'm going to try and explain the paradox, and then later on in the poem, I will touch on the paradox again. So Shakespeare is saying, don't remember me after I'm dead, right? So you're not thinking about the person, the speaker at all. But in order to know that this was almost the last wish of the speaker, you must read the poem. And if you are reading the poem, you are remembering the speaker. And therein lies the paradox. Okay, let's have a look at our poem. So he starts off by saying, no longer mourn for me when I am dead, then you shall hear the surly, sullen bell. Now, the bell stems from the Renaissance era. And the idea was that you could pay to have the passing bell rung at your funeral. And the bell would be rung the exact amount of times as your years on earth. So if you lived for 65 years, the bell would ring 65 years. And it's just a way of paying tribute, of honoring the person who has passed on. Simultaneously, the bell also serves as a notice, just informing that there is a death, that someone has passed on, that the person has in fact escaped the world. And so he says in line 2, don't mourn for me when I am dead, because then you are going to hear, when you are going to hear the bell. When he says surly, sullen bell, of course we have personification. Surly, quite upset, just I can't say stern, but there's this, it's simply very unhappy, serious sounding bell. And we've got a lovely bit of alliteration there, as well as our personification. Give warning to the world that I am fled. And so we've got that bit of a euphemism there. He doesn't say when I am dead, giving warning that I am dead, giving warning that I am fled. And of course that ties in with our structure when we look at our rhyme scheme, the Elizabethan, the Shakespearean sonnet, the A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, right. So I am fled from this vile world. And it's very interesting that in line 4, he speaks about the vile world. And so he characterizes the world in very strong terms. What he's in fact doing is, the speaker is condemning that age in which he lives. And the reason why he does that is because that era prized the packaging, the outward man, far more than substance. Okay, so it was all about artificial beauty rather than natural beauty. So he says that I am fled from this vile world with vilest worms to dwell. And again here, the reference to him being dead. I am fled with vilest worms to dwell. And so why does he mention worms? Because it's a clear reminder of his mortality. Dead body, worms, we are talking about decaying. We are talking about being buried, returning back to our most natural state. So it's quite an unpleasant image, I think. So far, I think that the speaker is expressing a sense of loss, even for his own departed youth. He knows at this point in his life, he's closer to death than he is to being a young man again. From this vile world with vilest worms to dwell, and again, vilest worms, it disgusts him, it repels him. the image of having his body in the earth, with vilest worms to dwell. Nay, no, comma, nay, you can stop right there. In fact, we have nay, comma, if you read this line, comma, so we can actually take out the words between the commas and it will read, nay, remember not. Okay, and I think it sounds like a double negative, isn't it? The no and the remember not, negative, negative. And again, repetition, the emphasis, he's been almost commanding in his tone. And the speaker saying, if you read this line, don't remember the hand that wrote it. So he's using writ as past tense for wrote. But I want to draw your attention to something quite interesting that's happening as the sonnet progresses. In the first line, he speaks of me. And then in line 4, no, line 5, I think it's line 5. Then in line 6, he says the hand. So first, the image is of me, the whole person. Then the image shifts and it's simply the hand. It's almost a lesser part of him. And then we are going to see in line 10, compounded am with clay, the leftover matter that is being incorporated. And then in line 11, there isn't even a body, a physical body left. Line 11, we just have poor name. That's all that is. So that by the time we get to line 14, we end with I am gone. So please take note of that progression or that retrogression, the way the speaker becomes less and less significant until there literally isn't anything left of our speaker. So then he says, nay, if you read this line, remember not the hand that writ it, for I love you so. So he says, on the basis of my love for you, don't think about me. Why don't you think about me? Because I love you and I don't want you to be unhappy. I don't want to see you sad, which sounds to me like pretty serious love. He doesn't want the young man to be in any kind of pain, emotional pain, when he thinks of the person. He then says, if that I in your sweet thoughts would be forgot. Wow. This is taking love to a whole other level, because he says, I want you to forget about me. Forget about me. Forget about our relationship. Forget what we had. Why must you forget? Because that remembering is going to make you sad. He then says that I in your sweet thoughts would be forgotten if, conditional, if thinking on me then should make you woe. Woe, sad, grief-stricken. You can remember me, he's saying, if it's going to be in a positive sense, where I suppose you're going to reminisce about the great times that we had and it's going to fill you with much joy. But if thinking of me makes you very sad, don't think about me at all. And I think it's a pretty tall order to give someone, especially if the person loved him back. So I think we can agree that this is definitely unselfish love going on here. Let's go on with our poem. He says, Oh, if I say you look upon this verse, so you're going to look at my poem, my sonnet, when I perhaps compounded am with clay. My body has decomposed to the point where what's left of my body is becoming mingled with the clay, with the soil, with the earth. So he's talking about quite a long time after the actual death. When I perhaps, meaning maybe then you'll think of me, maybe earlier, he doesn't know. Do not so much as my poor name rehearse. Don't even say my name. Don't even say my name. It's almost like you must blot out my very existence. Line 12. But let your love, even with my life, decay. Now we come to something very interesting here, learners. The speaker is quite selfless. That's the first point that you should note. And he values the happiness of this younger man more than his own. But what I actually want to touch on is that the younger man does not seem to be as in love with the speaker as the speaker is with him. Something for you to think about. But let your love, even with my life, decay. Which, think about it. Why would he give such an instruction? Almost command, request. Why would he do that? Because he's aware that the relationship isn't totally mutual. And they always say that in a relationship, one person loves more than the other. And to me, this is a really good example of that. One person always loves more. One party is always stronger than the other. But do not so much as my name rehearse, but let your love, even with my life, decay. So the decaying is a gradual process. So your love for me is going to grow less and less over time. Lest, this is the reason why the speaker's giving, lest the wise world should look to you and moan. I want to stop by wise world because it's quite interesting. The contrast from line 4. In line 4, he spoke about the vile world. Okay? He views the world as corrupt and disgusting. And now he says the wise world. So clearly, our speaker does not mean it when he speaks of the wise world. And I think that the tone here is sarcastic. And I'm saying that because his description is rather ironic. The wise world should look into your moan. And the moan is, of course, the utterance of grief. You know, you can cry quietly and delicately and tears are just rolling. And then you have that groan, that moan coming from, it's a place of anguish. I suppose teenagers would say it's that hardcore crying. Okay. Lest the wise world should look into your moan and mock you with me. So he says, I'm giving you this order because I want to protect you from other people. I don't want other people making fun of you when they hear you crying, when they see you crying for me, and mock you with me after I'm gone. So we end again with yet another euphemism. We had, I am fled, with vilest worms to dwell, and now we have, after I'm gone. And so the rhyming couplet, our last two lines, shows us that the speaker is more concerned with the young man's reputation than his own. He's more concerned about the reputation than about his love enduring. And yes, it's admirable, but I think there's definitely something quite sad in that as well. Of course, with this ending on a rhyming couplet, we then know that the rest of the poem, the structure would be 3 quatrains. I also want to talk about the rhyming couplet, where we see that the speaker's intense insecurity is shown. How is it shown? Because he's anxious over his relationship about this young man. And like I have said earlier, this young man seems to be quite a worldly young man. And it makes one wonder about the kind of relationship they have. They don't seem very they don't seem very well matched. I think that's what I'm trying. So they don't seem very well matched. And that last 2 lines highlights another issue for us. If the speaker is concerned about the young man crying, mourning, about the people making fun of him, the next implication is that the younger man, is also very concerned about people's perception of him. He doesn't want to be made fun of. That is why our speaker needs to protect him. Does that make sense? So he says, don't cry for me, O God, when I'm gone, because it's going to make you sad. When you are sad, you're going to cry. When you cry, they're going to make fun of you. When they're going to make fun of you, it's going to bother you. It's going to upset you. And you may end up hating me for that. And so this sonnet, I think it's safe to say, yes, it deals with his approaching death, his aging, unselfless love. But to me, it also highlights quite a bit of selfishness on the part of the younger man.